Well, hey there, and welcome to the Pro Church Tools Show. We're here to help you and your church navigate the biggest communication shift in 500 years. I'm Brady Shearer, your host. I'm joined as always by my co-host. We call him Pastor Poolside. It's Alexander Mills.
Hello, hello.
Cheers.
Cheers.
If you are listening, you may not pick up on the different location that we are in today. We are on the Pro Church Tools annual company retreat here in beautiful Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. And so, on this episode where we are answering your questions, opening the mailbag that we so lovingly call Bro Church Tools. We're mixing it up. Today, it's becoming even less formal,
Just
more
descending
relaxed.
into more chaos.
Into what we're dubbing Bro Church Pools. Because we are poolside. We've got the 14th green right beyond the pool over here at the next door golf course.
I feel borderline like sports commentators. Like there was an opportunity for us to move our show just a little bit this way and live commentate the golf that's going on in this world-class golf course.
Yeah.
But we're comfortable here on the porch. Workshop the idea of doing this right in the pool, but that we're going to have some technical difficulties with that idea.
Electricity, I don't know. It seems perhaps
but here we are.
Avoidable. We've got lots of your questions, so let's dive right in.
Let's get right into it. Dear Brady, thank you so much for the work that you are doing. I learned so much from your podcast. I have a question that perhaps you might consider for a future episode. Well, we're considering it on this episode. It has to do with expectations about how much social media can achieve. So it occurs to me that people don't go to social media looking for the deep answers to questions of faith, but they use social media for light entertainment, like cat videos to fill a bit of time, sometimes YouTube for instructions on how to do something. Are we as churches and ministries trying to use social media in a way that is contrary to how our customers are wanting to consume content? Also, if your goal is to have new members join your church, or in our case, join a membership where they get access to online courses and personal mentoring, is a social media campaign really going to achieve those goals? Or is it simply awareness that you and your church exist the most we can hope for? Or something like signing up for the email list? Am I expecting too much from social media?
So I wanted to push back on the premise of this question to begin with. The question says, quote, "It occurs to me that people don't go to social media looking for deep answers to questions of faith. They use social media for light entertainment, like cat videos." That's a very 2015 perspective view of social media. Let's consider social's history and understand how we got to where we are now. It starts as a way to share photos and life updates with your friends and family. And back when I first started doing social media for churches, there was very much like this cat video retort.
Sure.
This is all this is good for. And it's so funny to think of a platform like YouTube that started in 2005, because it really was like just this place where you'd go to watch funny videos.
Fail videos, that's all I was doing.
And share that with your friends.
Yeah.
And now we're in a place where platforms like YouTube and streaming services like it are bidding for the rights of major sports companies. The biggest sports leagues in the world are bringing in these streamers because they're like, traditional, what we call linear TV, can't pay the bills anymore. So what started in 2005 as kind of like this joke to share jokes with your friends is now overtaking broadcast media. So a data point I have here from the Global Web Index, it says, quote, "The percentage of Gen Z's online time being spent on social media is at an all-time high of 41%. So what does this mean? Of the time Gen Z spends on the internet, more and more of that time is being spent on social. So if you have this pie and there's 8 slices, as we go forward, more of those slices are being consumed by social media. Why? Because the scope, the breadth of what social media is defined as is continuing to expand.
Yeah.
It's not just sharing photos of your friends and life to keep everyone in your social sphere up to date, which we still use it for. I follow Alex on all social platforms because I want to see what's up with his family even when we're not Bro Church Pools.
That's right.
But now social has also stepped in and just said, look, we're kind of just a synonym for entertainment.
Yeah, and I think about, in reading this question and thinking about the statistics that we're talking about now.
Don't mind me, I'm just going to take a sip of this virgin mojito.
And thinking about how, when you and I first started using YouTube as teenagers, predominantly most of our time there was spent watching fail videos and useless things. But now as an adult, I don't know if you've coined this term, but YouTube is a sort of university for sorts. Like people are going to YouTube to actually ask some really deep, meaningful, important questions and expect high quality answers. I bought my son a fish tank a year ago, and I grew up with fish tanks. I bought him a fish tank, and I realized, a lot of the stuff that you need to do with a fish tank, cycling the water, this, that, and the other, my dad was doing a lot of that for me when I was a kid. So now I'm the dad, and I had to figure out how to do this. the first place I went was YouTube.
University.
And so I'm on the floor in Asher's bedroom trying to cycle this aquarium. And I said to myself out loud, how did my dad do this?
I had this thought all the time.
He did not have this information. And we had successful fish tanks. So I actually called him. I'm like, Dad, I just set up a fish tank for my son. And I'm really impressed by you because you didn't have the information that I have anyways. All of that to say, I spend a lot of time on social. I'm not part of Gen Z. I'm an elder millennial. But I do spend a lot of time on social. And a lot of it is actually interacting with like some of my deepest questions and longings about life and meaning.
And I'm glad you brought up YouTube, because YouTube is a rarity in the social media sphere. It's really the only social media platform that is like a favorite amongst every generation. Whether you are Boomer, Gen X, Millennial, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha, we're all on YouTube. And people go to YouTube looking for answers to their deepest questions. Entire political perspectives are being shaped by YouTube creators that people watch every day. Ways that people see the world in respect to theology and religion are being shaped by creators on social media. YouTube is social media, but it's much more broad than that. And so we need to continue to broaden our own understanding of what social media is. Some more data here. According to research by Google, nearly half of young people look to TikTok or Instagram instead of Google Maps or Google Search for answers. So social media is entertainment. Social media is friends and family. Social graph. Social media is search. This is from Google, the creators of modern search. Social is also becoming a big way to shop, with Gen Z's top brand discovery tool being ads seen on social media. That's again from the Global Media Index. So social media is commerce. And now to the next part of the question. This person wants to know how to use social to get people connected to online courses and personal mentoring, and if social can really play a role in that. So this hits on a social media rule that very few churches understand, but we would all do well to deploy and pay more attention to. I call it the first date dilemma. The first date dilemma. All relationships have stages. And you probably, unless you watch a show called Love is Blind, we're not proposing to your paramour, your partner today, sight unseen, or on the first date. Even Love and Blind, they're taking a couple of weeks. Why? Well, not because you didn't eventually want to get there with the right person, but because, well, this is just the first date. And churches come into social media like these really thirsty boys that are proposing on the first date, which again isn't even an analog in real life. So it's not even a great metaphor in this sense, but churches come in guns a-blazing. They're like, why are they not signing up for the most important thing that I have for them? We run a company. We sell products. Go through my Instagram feed, my grid, and look at the carousels and look at the reels. How often am I saying, buy our website service, Nucleus, buy our social media agency for churches, Social Sermons? Never. What you will find is me giving value over and over again, and then there will be calls to action to take our relationship to the next level. Not the end level, it's just asking for a second date, essentially. And if you're into that, you'll take the next step. So I'll say, hey, reply in the comments below with the word example, and I'll send you a link where you can download this free resource that I have. And then the way that you download that free resource is by entering your email address. Okay, now you're giving me a second date. Now you're joining the email list. And then I'm going to keep sending you newsletters. And eventually, 6 months, a year, however it might be, I might say, hey, we have this extra good promotion for something. And now we're taking our relationship to the next level. So you have to consider the stages of these things. But imagine if you were the type of person that went up to a girl, which doesn't happen in real life anymore, but let's remember a time when you did, and you were like, hey, would you like to be my long-term girlfriend? And they were like, what's your name? And then you kept doing that, and you kept getting rejected. You're like, I don't know. I don't think women is the right thing for me. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to get married. It's like, well, maybe your approach just needs some work.
You're describing a social strategy that requires first asking an introspective question, which is, what do I want these folks to commit to? What do I want them to do online? And it seems that this questioner already has the idea. Like, we want them to sign up for these mentorship things. But the social strategy that you're describing is such a long play, but not in the sense of the word play as in like a long con, but like a long play as like investing in a relationship. And so many of us don't think about social that way.
Well, and let me pause. It's not even a strategy. All we're saying is that online should mirror human relationships, right? Like, I always ask for congruency with online and offline. So we're not saying like you should do anything differently on social that you wouldn't do in real life. This is human relationships. You're probably not terrible at them in real life, so now port them over to online.
So fascinating. We on the show we talk about the invent of the internet and the world we're living in being the largest communication shift in the last 500 years. And for some of us, it feels like the internet's been around forever, but we're just in the infancy stage of it.
True, absolutely.
And it seems like we're really still fumbling our way through learning how to behave online.
Yes.
Right? The fact that we don't even know how to mirror regular human relationships online, like this is just what we're describing here, and we haven't figured that out yet. That's just more evidence that we're still kind of figuring this out. But that's the best expression of any social strategy, whether it be your church or pro-church tools or, the local pizza joint. It's that one that feels personal, the one that acknowledges that like we can build relational equity here through these social channels. That's the best expression of any social media strategy or expression that there is, I think.
And if anything, we don't do a good enough job promoting our content. I was on a call with this Australian church the other day, and they were like, at the end of the call, where we were discussing, hey, is Social Sermons, our social media agency for churches, socialsermons.com, a good fit for you? And we don't sell the platform openly on the site. You have to book a discovery call with me if you're interested, and we vet that because I want to meet the church face to face. We're working with like 182 churches right now. And I've met with every single one because I want to make sure if we're going to work together, you're a good fit. So we're talking, we get to the end of the call. He's like, hey, I have another question for you, actually. So we need some help with like our church's website. What do you think about like the team over at Nucleus? And I was like,
my team?
You mean me? He's like, what do you mean you? I was like, I founded Nucleus. He's like, you were the creator of Nucleus?
That is so crazy.
It's like, yes. He's like, you really should promote that more.
I've heard that before.
So if you need help with your church's website, more than 3,000 churches find their websites powered by Nucleus. You can find us. We'd love to chat with you. Nucleus.church.
Yeah. Hey, before moving on to the next question, when we record at home, we're in a pretty like insulated environment. And the idea of recording here, there's a lot that could be going wrong.
Yeah.
We both have 2 kids. Both of mine are asleep, I think. One of yours is asleep. We just don't know who's going to come running through here. I didn't expect it to be the birds. I don't know. I don't know if the mics caught that soundscape behind my back here, but those birds were making a call that was borderline distressing. I was watching in the reflection here wondering, is there a bird in crisis that needs some attention? So I'll be interested to see if that came through on the audio. Next question. What's your workout? This question's for me. What's your workout routine? Tips for starting out?
It's not for me. You're the one that's been in the gym, big guy. You said to me yesterday, you said, I've been eating well for 8 weeks. Now, I wanted to ask you this on the show, and I saved it because if there's a human I know who eats well, it's you.
Yeah.
So your definition of, well, I've really been eating well, it concerns me of what that might mean.
Sure.
So please tell me more.
So I took 3 months parental leave after Aiden was born. And being at home every day is really hard in the snacking department because your body lies to you and tells you that you're hungry when you're just bored. And so I was just doing more snacking than usual. So I've cut back on the snacking, and I am reevaluating my relationship with dessert, because this is what happens. When you eat clean, you feel good about that, and then you inevitably give yourself permission.
Oh, it's so funny, eh?
To have dessert because I have been eating clean, and then all of a sudden you're eating dessert every night.
So you eat too much dessert, and then you're like, I don't feel so good anymore. I got to cut out the dessert.
Right. So I've just been trying to prioritize protein, cut back on like some empty carbs, and cut out the dessert. And then we get here yesterday.
Well,
it's 45 minutes until dinner time. There's a whole slew of snacks.
Long day of travel yesterday with the kids.
And then so the dinner comes out, so snacking, dinner comes out, churros and ice cream for dessert, and this is where it came up. But my workout routine is really simple. I work out 1 day a week, and I try and do like an all body thing. I've got my exercises separated as like push exercises and pull exercises, that kind of thing. But because I only work out once or twice a week, I try and do like a full body thing, as opposed to like targeting, just a handful of muscle groups every time I work out. And I've been feeling great.
Love that.
But this question's really for you.
Love that for you.
Yeah.
So
we got a nice little gym here.
We do, and I did a workout.
Nice.
Basically, my workout routine looks like this: daily 1 hour walks. These have dramatically changed my life. We've talked about them before on the show. I was really happy this morning. I got to do it with my daughter. She is, 18, 19 months old, in that range. And it's winter right now in Canada. And so we have not been able to do our daily walks. We get here. First thing we do this morning after breakfast, put her in the stroller. Let's go explore the area. And we were out for like 90 minutes. We
you were gone for a long time.
A bit longer than normal. Well, you get a little far. You're not in your normal route. And you're, oh boy.
Yeah.
So I got her out. She walked around a bit, got back in the stroller. Lovely. So that's every day. Then my workout split is push-pull legs. So 3 workouts per week. Push-pull legs is basically a way of categorizing different types of exercises into groupings that would not exhaust the other areas. So push would typically be chest exercises, shoulder exercises, and tricep exercises. Pull would be back exercises, bicep exercises, and the back is a big spot, so multiple backs.
Yeah.
So you might do upper back like rear delts, you might do lower back, lats, and then legs is self-explanatory: quads, hammies, calves. So breaking it up into 3 lifting sessions, and then that's 3 days per week. And then the remaining 4 days per week, I do an hour of zone 2 cardio. So for me, my zone 2 heart rate is between 128 beats per minute and 140 beats per minute. I went to a doctor to figure that out, did the VO2 max test where you run on the treadmill with the mask on, like you see in the movies. You don't have to do all that. One of the easiest ways to figure out your own zone 2 is like, could you have a conversation while working out and like not enjoy it? So yeah, you could talk, but like you'd be like, okay, like let's this is not super leisurely, But the idea of zone 2 is like you're challenging yourself a tiny bit, but you could basically do the workout indefinitely. So I'll do it on a stationary bike in my basement for an hour. That's where I watch movies. That's where I catch up with all my movies. So that's 4 days per week.
Have you seen, I was thinking about this last night actually, have you seen Shawshank Redemption?
I mean, who hasn't?
Okay, I was just wondering. Yeah, I was going to say you should add that to your list.
I mean,
what was the movie we were
such a
talking about with
classic.
Tristan last night?
That's true.
No Country for
Old Men.
Old Men, yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that until a few years ago
Right.
when we watched that together on a trip. So final thing I want to add this year, which I'm not doing currently, is about once per week of some high intensity training. So some sprinting, some intervals. That's the one thing that I'm missing.
You think you'll be able to pull that off by yourself? That seems like the type of workout that you need like someone yelling at you to do.
Oh, I'm quite motivated.
Yeah.
If nothing else, then by my spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Though I will say my blue, red, and green ribbons have been struggling more than I would have hoped coming into this beginning of the year.
That's all right.
Yeah, you know what? I was like, it's okay to recalibrate.
Yeah.
And it's not an all or nothing thing. But what I didn't want to do is when I realized, oh no, I'm not going to reach my target, then ditch it altogether, right? That's what you don't want. And that even speaks to kind of the dessert and dinner thing, right? We can tend to get all or nothing. We get into this binary, especially maybe people like us with our personality types, where it's like, well, I said no dessert, might as well eat every dessert.
Yeah. That's exactly how I feel.
Less of that is probably better.
Yeah. Next question. I know that you say a viral for me post is about 10 times normal views, but what about a post that fails? I've seen some posts do 10 times worse than our normal views. Have you seen any reason why this may happen? Recently, a YouTube short of my church had 9 views, so I deleted it. I tried posting it again the next morning, then it got over 2,000 views. What is that about?
I mean, YouTube specifically is the biggest culprit with this.
Yeah.
You won't normally see this level of disparity on platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, but YouTube will do this. The way that you need to, it's not everyone understands how algorithms work. In a sense, it's pretty simple how they're gauging whether or not a post is going to resonate with a larger audience. So what they'll do is they'll take your post and they'll basically show it to like a small handful of people, whether that's 9, 20, something like that. It's a small handful. And based on how they respond, that will then determine your level of reach. Okay, we're going to send this to the next group and they're going to be this size. My guess would be that YouTube is quite strict with how they distribute. So if those first 9 people are not evaluating your content in the way that YouTube hopes they would, then okay, they're just stopping it. Whereas a platform like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, they're like, okay, we're not going to like push this to 40% of this creator's audience. We're going to push it to like 10% more, and we'll give it a second chance and see how it goes. This is why, if you post the identical content a second time, you can sometimes see drastically different performance. And this is also why you should evaluate what you're doing on social, not over like a single post, or even multiple posts, but multiple weeks and months, because you can see these outlier posts for the positive or the negative that can make you feel really good or really bad. And that might not be a really accurate picture of your social media traction. It's also a reflection of how these discovery algorithms work. We now have this tremendous upside to reach new people, not boosting posts, not paying. The downside is your posts can also flop. Not usually to the same extent that the upside is possible. Like the upside is so much greater than the downside, but YouTube does seem to be a bit of a hater relative to the others.
What do you think about that strategy then? If you have a post that like, and sometimes the posts that we create, like we go to lengths to create these posts. Like we're proud of them.
Yep.
They are objectively good content. If you have one that does flop, 9 views on TikTok, 212 views. What do you think about that strategy of deleting it or archiving it and maybe reposting it at a different time or?
Yeah, I love it. Especially if you believe in the post.
Right.
Because sometimes you put together a post and you're like, this is good. Sometimes you put together a post and like it took you a long time. You really had to put effort into it. In those cases, if it flops and you're like, I'm not happy with this, it's perfectly okay to archive the post and then give it another shot. And just see. Like the way these algorithms work, it's not going to like penalize you.
Right.
There's no downside. And so, might be a bit embarrassing. You might feel strange. Like I think it's worth acknowledging that. People don't do this because they're like, this is going to be really embarrassing. People saw my post and didn't like it. Now I'm going to like show up again. It's like returning to auditions where they already said, you are not good enough to be on this show. But that's not how you should view it. It can feel that way, but push through it. And if it flops again, you're like, okay, I listened to Brady. It didn't help anything. I'm not doing this again. Fine. But just give it one shot, especially if you believe in the post, you spend time on it.
And if it does flop again, if it's a video, if it's a short form video, this type of social content we talk about so much on the show, if it flops again, recreate it with a different hook. If you really believe in the post, if you think like this is really good,
stubborn. You're really stubborn.
Like try it again with a different hook.
Because that is usually what's
Right.
defining performance more than anything else.
Next question. What are 3 non-church podcasts that you both enjoy most? I had a hard time with this one. Because
Do you want to go first?
I had a hard time because of the disclaimer of non-church podcasts. Because admittedly, I'm subscribed to a lot of podcasts. I should have counted how many. And I would venture to guess like 90% of them are churchish. So I had a hard time.
He's religious, everyone. He wants you to know it.
But I'll go first. Wow. Coming out of the gate swinging with this one. It's called the Meat Eater Podcast, which
Yeah.
I know can come off a little depending on your relationship with food. And
I'm going to need you to tell me more about it.
The Meat Eater Network is like it's like the biggest hunting podcast and hunting network around.
Got it.
And so they have like really, really great content. And they put out a lot of content, like 2 or 3 podcasts a week on their main feed. And then they have other podcasts like in their network. I listen to a lot of the Meat Eater network podcasts.
So it's hunting. It's not like carnivore diet.
Right. It's
Got it.
hunting. Yeah, it's not just like just talking about carnivore diet.
You don't need vegetables or fiber. I know that's really popular right now. I know some of you listening are like, Brady, I've been on the carnivore diet. It's been great. I just
good for you. But the thing I love about the Meat Eater podcast for the last couple of years is they've started a trivia show. And the trivia show on the podcast was received so well that they actually turned it into a board game. So now you can buy it. It's Meat Eater Trivia.
You got a code for us?
No, I don't. But every week they release a trivia show. So it's like they have people in the room. There's like 8 or 10 people in the room, whether people who work in the Meat Eater offices or if they have a special guest on the podcast, the main podcast that week, they'll bring them into the show. And it's just 10 questions about like wildlife, conservation, cooking, and there's a 4th category that I can't remember. But it's just so entertaining. I learned so much from that show. So I was a listener to the Meat Eater podcast before the trivia show, but now I'm really enjoying the trivia show.
And if you use code Pastor Pork at checkout, 15% off and free shipping.
Okay, the next one is called the Walk a Little Slower podcast. It's by this guy named Tanner Olson, and he's a poet. He's an author. And his poem entitled Walk a Little Slower came across my social feeds sometime in the last handful of years. It like stopped me in my tracks. One of the best poems I've read in a long time, to the point where like I stopped what I was doing. I looked him up. He's got a book of poetry called, you guessed it, Walk a Little Slower. I actually don't have a copy anymore. I have had multiple copies and I keep giving them away. That's like how much I enjoy this book. And this podcast is really simple. He adds an episode like once a week or something, and he simply just reads one of his poems, whether it's one from one of his books or like new material he's working on. He's just like a very calming, non-anxious presence, and it's just a space to listen to some nice man read a lovely poem for 8 minutes or so, and then move on with your day. So sometimes my days can feel like busy, loud, stimulating, whether it's work or home or play, wherever. And those, if I ever need like something like, you know, the Calm app or whatever, like a time to like meditate, I'll usually go to this podcast and just listen to one of his poems. Yeah, it's really good stuff. And the last one is kind of churchy.
Man he did not understand the assignment.
It's called Liturgies for Parents with Kayla Craig. She's an author. She's written a couple books that like are part of the rudder for our lives right now. They're prayer books. So, and one of them is specifically for parents. So prayers for being a parent. Being a parent's really hard, and talk about like trying to be a non-anxious presence. It's really hard to be a non-anxious parent. And these liturgies, these prayers, they, like I said, they are like the rudder of our ship right now. And so she has this podcast, Liturgies for Parents, where it's similar to the Tanner Olson podcast, where she gets on, she'll read like a scripture, and then one of her liturgies that she has either published or is currently writing, she'll just read like over you or with you and invite you. She says like, make wherever you are a sacred space. And specifically in the context of parenting, this one's been really helpful for me. I will listen to this in the car, usually after dropping off a kid at daycare or something, you know, like you just need a few minutes to reset, depending on what's gone on during the day. So that's Liturgies for Parents with Kayla Craig. A little bit churchy.
Okay, yeah. Well, and Pastor Poetry, the man that puts lit in liturgy, was ready at dinner last night as we kicked off our annual retreat. He had a prayer for gatherings. Yes. Is very, made that moment sacred for all of us. Okay, nice. So 3 podcasts that I've got. These are all going to make me look like a fanboy for the Ringer podcast network. Let me just tell you, I had a personal vendetta against Bill Simmons, the founder of The Ringer. Why? Because Boston sports media is a virus that infects all sports media, and it must be stopped. And Bill Simmons is, of course, the head of the snake. But I would listen, and I would hate listen at the beginning.
Yeah.
And this really speaks to the content, the quality of the people that he's hiring at The Ringer, because I would listen to his show, and then I'd start with another show, and I was like, well, this is a good show. And then it was like, uh-oh. I start to believe that the next show is going to be a good show. Yeah. So these are 3 from The Ringer that are my favorite. The first is called Plain English with Derek Thompson. Just a few of the episode titles. The Dark Side of the Internet's Obsession with Anxiety. So the name is pretty self-descriptive. Plain English with Derek Thompson hits on a ton of different concepts and topics that are probably beyond our understanding. So he'll bring on experts and he's like, okay, this seems important. Tell me what this actually means. So that episode about anxiety brings on this expert, and they're like, yeah, like with how much we talk about anxiety now, it's starting to become so aware in the cultural zeitgeist that people are seeing things that might not actually be there. And so we've swung so far on the spectrum that we're creating problems that don't exist. It was healthy to be aware of them. We've gone too far.
Classic. I subscribe to
Won't we do it?
I subscribe to a Reddit thread called Explain It to Me Like I'm 5.
There you go.
Sounds like the same thing. It's like there's stuff out there that people know about that I need to know about, but I'm not smart enough to know about. So it's like, can we just speak in plain English?
Yeah. That's number 1. Number 2, The Big Picture with Sean Fennessy and Amanda Dobbins. This is their film review show. Kind of a weird thing that's happening in the world right now where, like, it's kind of almost the phenomenon where we want to watch people play video games, which I don't watch streamers, so I don't understand the draw to that. But I started listening to, like, reaction podcasts to, like, Raptors games, basketball team. And then I stopped watching the Raptors games and just listened to the reaction podcast because I just don't have time at night to sit down for 2.5 hours with 2 kids in the life that I live, but I want to keep on top of the team. And now I don't actually watch the NBA. I just listen to content about the NBA. What is that? Seems strange. Not sure if it's healthy, but that's what I do.
Yeah, might want to explore that.
So now I've begun listening to reaction podcasts on films. And it's so great because it makes you feel like a part of a community, even if maybe the people around you like don't care about certain things that you care about.
Yeah.
Like hunting.
Yeah.
And then the final one is The Town with Matt Bellany. This show is all about kind of the entertainment industry and what's happening. So some episodes that I've enjoyed recently, 5 major music business questions after the Grammys. Will the new all-in sports app finally kill cable? Warner Brothers and Paramount are talking. Should they merge? So really just talking about like entertainment industry, sports. The Town is, of course, related to Hollywood, the moniker being The Town.
Look at us, not including any sports podcasts on this list.
Oh, wow.
I did that intentionally because the first podcast that came to mind was like, oh, like I've got
All
lots
my
of sports
teams are
podcasts.
trash or will always lose in the Super Bowl,
Yeah.
so I can't really listen to sports podcasts anymore.
Okay, next question. It's about YouTube. Bro, our YouTube is popping off right now. Our main page and student page have had their best weeks of engagement ever in the past 2 weeks. They both have had viral for us posts in the shorts feed. So here's a question I'd love to hear you talk about more. With more reach time, there is always negative feedback. In a strictly business context, it's actually good because any interactions are just boosting us in the algorithm. I believe you've talked before about how to respond to negativity. And we have a good set of principles for that. You know, like if it's genuine, we'll engage. And if they are lost, for example, God's not real, we generally respond in a friendly way that it points the person to Jesus. The challenge for us is when the mean comments come from Christians. I had someone say that my voice was dumb, someone called our pastor fat, etc. So as someone who's a public figure who has had to learn to deal with this, what advice do you have for people who might be experiencing this for the first time?
Yeah, so there's an element to this that is really just exposure therapy, kind of, where the first time it happens, it's really upsetting. It's really kind of just knocks you back. And then the more that it happens, the more people say the same things, and you start to like not care as much. You know, the best story I always tell is the eyebrows one, where people were like, "Why can't we see your eyebrows?" And there's an element to this where it actually can be valuable. It can help you understand how you're perceived by others in a way that people close to you would probably never say.
Sure.
Because one, they're so close to it that they don't think about it, and two, they might be like, no, I would never actually say that about somebody. Like, even if it's true, like, that's not helpful in any way. Whereas someone on the internet with the power of being a keyboard warrior might. What did Ron call them? Thumb thugs?
Yes. Yes.
As a side note, like, if you watched our last two episodes, our interview with Ron at Transformation Church and our interview with Nikki at Elevation Church, and then you were like, oh, I subscribed, I'm going to come in. So once a month, we open the mailbag, we answer questions. Not rarely, unprecedentedly, we have never been on the corporate retreat when we did it. So we're still doing the same thing. Though some of the formal cadence to these answers does feel strange when I have a mojito and I'm like reclining so far. So people were like, hey, why are your eyebrows invisible? And what I realized was that like I have blonde hair and like my eyebrows were invisible. And so I started getting my eyebrows tinted and I was like, oh, I'm so glad somebody said this. Now my eyebrows match my hair. And this is better for everyone.
And for me, people in the YouTube comments saying, why do you have hair like a woman? And I still remain with the, I almost just said one of the most disparaging phrases out loud that someone referred to my hair with, and I can't say that on the show.
No, we are relaxed, but we still have to be safe for work.
Yeah, and I still have my long hair, so I haven't made any alterations or changes based off the feedback.
Right, and there's two paths you can take. One, you can just do whatever people say.
Yeah.
You know? Brady. Secondly, you can be like, no, I'm my own person, and I'm going to stick to my guns as they were.
But it is tough. You never get. I don't believe you ever get immune to it because we still remain human. But yeah, sometimes my wife still gets so worked up about that one comment that I just alluded to, and that's just because she hasn't heard any of the other ones.
What's funny is that she used a very similarly alliterated phrase about me when I started using AirPods.
Yeah, that's true. And you're still using AirPods like the rest of us. Next
See?
question.
I'm not completely spineless.
What are the top 3 countries you visited, and which one would you choose to live in?
Okay, so I counted up all the countries that I've been to.
Yeah.
I've only been to 16.
That's not only. That's quite a bit.
There's like 350 countries.
There's a lot. You've been to a lot of states.
This is the problem. I spent all of my 20s in America.
Yeah.
I've been to, I think it's like 37 to 50 states. I've been to virtually every major American city because I've been to every MLB ballpark.
Any interest to see the states that you haven't seen?
Yeah, like some.
Yeah.
Like I've never been to New Orleans. Like Louisiana. Like
It's so good.
I'd love to go there.
Yeah.
Alaska? Would love to go there.
Yeah. It's about that.
Well, I mean, Wyoming seems to have some things.
Yeah.
You know, so certainly there are some.
Yeah.
So these are the 16 countries that I've been to, just so that we can consider the list. Austria, Costa Rica, Dominican Republic, where we are right now, Faroe Islands, France, Germany, Greece, Iceland, Italy, Maldives, Mexico, Portugal, Spain, United Arab Emirates, United Kingdom, United States, and there are 4 more countries that I plan to check off later this year. Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, and Norway. The top 3, in no particular order. Number 1 is Iceland. Really, there's just nowhere like it. And you have this on your top 3. So to you.
I don't know how to describe it in any other way other than like it's so other.
Which is why we love the state of Utah.
Yes.
The south of that. It's like, where are we?
There were so many times where we were in like presumably like uninhabited land, like virgin land, which was it's just such a foreign feeling for, you know, folks like us who were born and raised in the West. Like it's so, that place is mystical. So I definitely had it in my list. Also, another country that's both shared in our lists, Italy.
Oh, and I have been to a part that you have not.
Right.
And you have been to parts that I have not.
Right.
And
So,
really, this is why Italy is so high on my list.
Yeah.
Because I've only been to one area. I flew out of Venice, but I didn't even go to Venice. I've just been to the Dolomites, so the northern, Tyrolean region. And that means that there's like, it's like America in a lot of ways. Like it just has so much to explore.
Yeah. And so we flew into Naples and spent a week in the Amalfi Coast. So it didn't even make it up to like Rome or anything more north than that, which again, is just like a whole nother cultural experience. My mom's family is Italian. And so when Rebecca and I landed there, I felt, just like, I don't know what the word is, like nostalgia. Even though I'd never been there before, I just felt like I understood the culture and I really enjoyed that feeling. Italian cuisine is my favorite food. And again, to the diversity of that country, like you can enjoy the same dish, whether it's pasta or pizza or wine or whatever, in different areas of that country and have a totally different like cultural experience, which I love too. But man, the Amalfi Coast, I'll just skip right to it. The Amalfi Coast is the place where I could pack up my bags.
That's the one.
Yeah, and settle and move to.
And okay, give a quick hit on the third country you had.
Uganda, of course. Uganda is where Rebecca and I met. We have been home since 2012, so it's been a long time, and I don't know when or if we would ever go back. But that country just really, we both spent a long time there. Rebecca lived there for a year. I lived there for the better part of a year. Just has like a really big part and piece of our hearts. I'd love to take my family back there, like our kids. It's a journey, to get there. But yeah, it's just a really special place to us.
So I can't live in Iceland.
No.
I need 4 seasons, and I am a Canadian, but I live in the south of Canada.
Yeah.
I'm a softer Canadian. I lived in the north of Canada, had to leave.
Yeah.
Wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
I'm not built different. I'm built the same
Right.
as most Canadians, which is why we all live in the same place. It's a little too other, and it's too remote. Italy, in the same reason that you would want to live there, I am not Italian. I don't speak the language. I don't have that rich family history. And so I would always feel like I don't belong here, which is why the number one country for me that I'd love to visit and would absolutely be okay to live in, and I'm almost embarrassed to choose this country, is the United Kingdom. Here are the reasons why. Number one, it's familiar.
Sure.
It's basically like, what if we moved and lived in Canada, but all the buildings are old instead of new? Which is another reason. Like, I was just enchanted by the architecture in London. And being there felt like, oh man, there's so much history here, and yet it's also so familiar, which is something that's pretty rare. Because when I go to the States, it feels familiar, but there's no like old history there. Yeah. The big cities, London, outstanding. Edinburgh, stunning.
Yeah.
The countryside. Oh, I liked living in the city for a year. Oh, we lived in the city for a decade. Now we want to go and we want to live in the, English countryside.
Easy.
What if we didn't live in the English countryside? And that's why this is such a great choice. 3 countries in one, haters. Wales, Scotland, and England. Oh, we're just going to live on Skye for another decade.
Oh, man.
Fine. I'm into it. And then the accessibility. Like, the reality is, I need Amazon Prime. And as much as I loved Iceland, like, if something is needed and I can't have it, like, that's not me. I can't live, at the top of a mountain where, like, what if my fish tank needs cleaning? and I YouTube it.
It's a valid question.
I can't Amazon Prime the fish cleaning detergent.
Right.
I'm in trouble.
And then there's the lava.
Well, that's true. You know, every so often you might have to abandon your home
Yep.
that you already abandoned to live in Iceland, but now
Yeah.
you can't even live in Iceland where you settled because explosions.
I'd put Scotland as an honorable mention for my list, my
Okay.
top 3. We had such a great trip there.
we really did.
I really detest this word, but like the vibes, really immaculate. The food, spectacular.
Guys, mutton is good.
Yeah.
Like, hot take, mutton is
Haggis, not bad.
into it.
Yeah. Hey, you mentioned borrowing trends from other sectors for church social. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, and to be clear, he said borrowing, not boring trends.
Yeah.
So, creativity is all about combination. When you get siloed in a subculture like church creativity, you're going to end up seeing the same creative combinations recycled over and over again. That's just what happens. It's why they say you become the combination of the 5 people closest to you. Whatever is close to you, you end up using that. And so, for creativity, I like to purposely go to other industries that I have a lot. My passions are very eclectic, and so I can go to something that I care about.
Sure.
But I also look at industries that I don't have a personal interest in to try to find, okay, what in their silo are they doing? And I'll look for creative combinations that don't exist in my own subculture, and then I'll take those combinations and bring them into our subculture. So here's an example of this. If you go to my Instagram and you look through my recent Instagram reels, you will see a certain format of post that has dramatically more views than the others. And it has happened now, I think 4 or 5 times where I've done this format of post and it has gotten, 200,000 views compared to like 40,000 views that the other ones get. And it was a very specific type of post that I saw on business, build your business bro social media.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, it's basically where you have a really short reel. It's like 8 seconds and it's basically a list post in a reel. So it's like, 5 fonts that I'm using for churches this year. And it's just like boom, 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 boom in rapid succession. And I was like, oh, we do a lot of list post type content, bullet post type content. I can bring that over. And it has worked exceptionally well because no one was really doing it. It's also funny when you do something and then you see others starting to copy it in your subculture.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've done with my carousels is this big blocky text where we'll take, here's the secret. We take Nuhas Grotesque, our brand font, and then in Photoshop, I'll add a stroke of the exact same color of like 5 to 10 pixels, depending on how big the type is on the canvas. And so it takes this font and it gives it like this like extra bold look. Like it's already the bold weight, and now it's like crazy bold. And so people are always like, what font are you using? And I'm like, well, it's just this font, but you have to add the stroke in Photoshop. That's the secret. And it's that high contrast, big text on a colored background and nothing else as the cover of the carousel. I'm starting to see it in so many other places in the church subculture. Why? Because people are seeing what we're doing and like, oh, that got my attention. I should replicate that. Yeah. And that's what happens, right? That's not a bad thing. It's like, if you like this shirt, this crochet shirt, Dandy Del Mar, Los Angeles company, like go buy it. It's legit. Like affordable, not tremendously unaffordable. So looking to other industries is great for breaking out of that silo, getting new inspiration, and finding those different creative combinations. It's not like they're doing something that's never been done. That's all creativity is just like, we're going to take this thing and we're going to mix it with this thing.
Yeah.
And so it's great to look elsewhere.
And if you're creative, well, if you're anyone, you have your hobby-like interests that are outside of your discipline for work, like outside, like your Instagram Explore page is surely a little bit more than just
shirtless men.
Church
no,
content.
that's all mine is.
Like maybe you bake sourdough, or maybe you're into specialty coffee or fashion or fragrances or whatever. So you don't have to look too far. You don't have to put a whole lot of effort into like, well, what industry am I going to pick? How am I going to find what's going on in that industry? Well, start with your Instagram Explore page and see your other interests, whether it's sourdough or coffee or fashion or fragrance. And those posts that are showing up on your Explore page are the posts that are getting pushed by the algorithm. And so you'll be able to see pretty quickly and you'll see the diversity of it. Like in my Explore page, if you were to hold it a little bit far away from me where I couldn't exactly see the content, but I could see the design of the posts, I could probably tell you what industry it's from just based off of how they look. Because each industry has its own complexion for each season. And so this heavy weighted font that I agree with you in the church space. I didn't see too many people doing before you were doing it, and now you've been doing it for a while and it's been working. Now I'm seeing a lot of people doing it. Like it's cyclical.
Yep.
People will do it for a while. The church space will look like that for a while, and then it'll be on to the next thing. So.
To that end, I went to my Explore page trying to get inspiration, but it was all just shirtless men. And I was like, I don't know if I can bring this over.
Right.
Yeah, I think I am clearly too deep into the fitness.
Yeah.
Britt was like, why is everyone naked? I go, see, but there's no women.
It's all men, yeah.
So it's fine. It's actually fine.
You need like a burner account.
Like I need a reset on the Explore page.
Yeah. Imagine you could reset your algorithm. There's just a master button, just reset, start from scratch.
I don't know about that. Then the first time I started TikTok, it was all hockey videos and like 4x4s because they're like, you're a Canadian male.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is awful.
Yeah.
So my Explore page used to be just photos of beautiful places, but that wasn't good for my wanderlust.
Right.
So then they replaced it with shirtless men, which is not good for another type of lust.
Sure.
Of me lusting after, I wish I had
Muscles,
a body like that.
yeah.
I'm not lusting after the men per se. I'm lusting after if only I could have those levels of muscles. But here's another good example of how I've done this. In the church websites that we've been designing recently, I've taken a ton of inspiration from fashion websites.
You're on those websites anyways.
Right. And what I started to notice with fashion websites is that it doesn't really matter like what brand. None of them really have a brand. Like what most of them have, countless examples, and surely there are outliers, usually with the big brands like Target and Gap, where their actual name supersedes the clothing. But on like smaller designers, and even on like designers of like, you know, the Balenciagas or the Louis Vuittons, what usually happens is it's like white background, black serif font, and then giant image containers that show people wearing the clothes.
Right.
Because the point of the website is for you to say, I could be that person wearing the clothes.
Right.
So they don't want to elevate like the logo or their brand colors because like that's not what they're trying to like inspire you with and motivate you with. And so I was like, that makes perfect sense for church websites. Like, what is the church? It's the people. The heartbeat of your church, the lifeblood, is like the community.
Yeah.
And so we should just have really simple church websites, white backgrounds, black backgrounds with like a white or black font to pair, simple serif, and then just big image containers that we fill with photography. This is also amazing because now your church website will never look like somebody else's church's website.
Looks like you.
It's like you can have a black logo that says Balenciaga or Daniel Simmons or Cole Buxton or Acne Studios or Our Legacy, whatever it might be. And it's just black serif text on a white background. But the clothes for each of these brands is going to be different. And so like, yes, the template is almost identical, but that doesn't matter because that's not what you're looking at. And so that was something that I wasn't seeing in the church industry. Like the church website space was just recycling the same creative combinations. And I was like, this isn't actually, I think, what we can do. Like there's more creativity, something new to be discovered, but something that also aligns better with our church's mission and DNA.
And okay, I love this. Now we're talking about church websites, which is great. We strayed from the question. We already answered that question. We're on to something new now. What I love about that methodology from the fashion industry is their mission, their vision is to get people to buy the clothes. And so by deprioritizing the brand, the logo, and by prioritizing imagery of the clothes on people, they are actively removing boundaries for you, the consumer, to take the next step, which is buy the clothes. They're prioritizing, okay, the pain point for a user when they are thinking about investing in this piece of clothing is, and buying it online is this going to fit me or is this going to look good on me? So they're prioritizing showing you. I've noticed that a lot on fashion websites that I've been on lately, like not just showing the clothes, not just showing them on one model, showing them on different models of different shapes, different sizes, the photos are taken in different settings to show the diversity of the clothes, to give you confidence when you make that decision, I'm going to like this, or I'm going to bet that I'm going to like this. The same thing is true in the church world. When folks are engaging with your church website, especially folks who are first-time visitors who have yet to visit you in person, but they're visiting you online first, they are looking to your website to see what your church looks like, to evaluate, can I or should I take this next step? I see this little thing popping out saying, join us, plan your visit. And I see them asking me to, and I want to go to church. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm on the website. But how am I going to know that when I walk in, I'm going to fit in? And so by prioritizing images of real people in your real space, that gives first-time visitors the confidence to take that next step from just visiting your website to maybe then filling out the plan to visit thing, than to actually stepping through your doors and coming to visit. You by prioritizing real pictures of your space and your people, you have removed barriers, removed boundaries for them to come and worship with you.
And there's a big practical element of this too, which is you can communicate in an instant with a photo what would take paragraphs worth of text.
Yeah.
A picture is worth 1,000 words. You've got an instant to make a good first impression. That first impression can be made with a beautiful photo.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what space your church meets in. It doesn't matter what your lighting is like. A beautiful photo can be taken of your church's community in your existing space. This gets back to congruency. You don't need to put on. You don't need to posture and pretend your church is something different. You can take photos of that happening and it feels real.
Yeah.
And then for the people that are in your church, when they go to your website, what do they see? They see them.
Yeah.
When they think about what our church is, they don't think about the logo.
Right.
They don't think about the colors. They don't think about the font. That isn't even on their radar.
Yeah.
They might think about the building, which is why that photo might make sense on the homepage. But more than that, they think about the church. Oh, the people I sit next to, the people that I go to church with, the pastor, the worship team, the leadership. It's all the people for every audience. Anyway, we got on a bit of a website tangent.
That's so good. Let's get on to the poolside tangent. What's your favorite poolside drink?
So we do consume alcohol, Alexander and I. Not everyone at Pro Church Tools does.
I didn't until I started working at Pro Church Tools.
That's not
Which
relevant.
is not your fault. I was just becoming my own man, becoming an adult.
This happens when you hire 23-year-olds, right? Like, things change.
Yeah.
I would describe us as very light drinkers.
Very casual.
To that end, last year, we were in the Dominican Republic on our annual retreat. And the hospitality company that we are with this year, we were with last year. They were outstanding. Volalto, Volalto. And at the end of the year, they showed me the bill for the food and the drink. And they're like, yeah, you didn't drink at all. And I was like, really? I thought we put in work.
We put in work, yeah.
Relative to normal, when I'm at home, I just never drink.
Hey, have a glass when you go for dinner or whatever.
If I'm with friends, oh yeah, one thing, one drink, that's about it. So, what do I like? Poolside? Crispy beer. Pilsner, pale ale, a Kolsch, ice cold, big fan. The Dominican beer they got here is called Presidente.
Well, and this is it. For anyone who's listened to this show for any amount of time, you'll know about me that I'm a very seasonal. You and I both, very seasonal eaters and drinkers and livers.
No pun intended.
Yeah, I drink seasonally in the way that I will have a drink poolside. That I would not have in just about any other circumstance. So
Time
I
and place.
remember yesterday, last year, when those local Dominican beers came out, those Presidentes or whatever, I was eager to have one and I enjoyed every sip of it. And I think it was only because I was by the pool in the Dominican. So yeah, poolside, anything cold, anything fruity, anything with bubbles. As long as it's cold and makes me feel like summer, I'm here for it.
For cocktails, I'm a big mojito fan.
Yeah.
There's no alcohol in this one because I do not like to have a drink while podcasting. I'm a bit of a lightweight where I just feel alcohol.
Yeah.
So I got to be sharp.
Because we don't drink it.
Right. There's no practice. Mules, pina coladas.
Yeah.
I'm a tequila and gin fan myself when it comes to the liquors. So I love Mexican cocktails. You put a mezcal in something, you put a tequila in it, you make it a bit spicy, you throw in some citrus. I'm going to drink it. I'm going to be a happy man.
Lots of rum and cokes going on this week, and
that's
that is not
really,
my drink of choice.
No.
Yeah.
Which is, we're talking about all the things that we do. That's good. I would just never go for that.
Yeah, not for me.
And then, you can't go wrong with a flavored soda water. For those that are not going to be drinking alcohol, either for health reasons, theological reasons, whatever reason you might be, we support it. LaCroix has a new mojito flavor.
No way. Have you had it?
Of course not.
Yeah.
We're in Canada.
Yeah.
They have a new beach plum flavor as well. A little play on words. And then I've always loved their passion fruit and tangerine flavors. Alex, famously, inexplicably, big fan of the key lime flavor, which I find atrocious.
I've had some time to reflect on that.
Thank you.
And I think it's one of those things where I'm ready to admit that it's not actually good in a dignified way.
Okay.
But it's good in kind of a silly, goofy mood kind of way.
I don't want a savory flavor in a soda water.
It's crazy.
Essence of pie.
Speaking of drinking, I so rarely drink beer. But last week we went out for for lunch to the brewery that's actually below our office. And they had 2 beers that were like, they were just like yelling at me, these beers, like the flavor profiles. I just like, I needed to try them. And they were both hazy IPAs, but one of them was guava, orange, maybe, and key lime. And I'd never had a beer with key lime in it. And it came, and these weren't tasting notes. These are like fruit additives.
Oh.
Yeah. And the key lime came through like crazy. And it was a real trip, but it was very good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm supportive of that.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in that.
Moving on from the drinks. Back to some church material. Long-time listener, first-time texter. I have a quick question about cameras. I know you just put out that awesome list of best camera for churches for 2024. Find that on YouTube. But I'm not sure which one is the best for us. We're a multi-campus church with the same message and material for all campuses. We pre-record each week. We currently use a Sony camcorder into a Tomos Ninja Atomos to an NDI Bird Dog, which is then fed into a vMix where we record 2 versions, one with lower thirds, one without. We want to update the camera we use. Do we go broadcast or cinema category? We don't need live streaming features because we don't stream on Sundays, but we also don't need crazy resolution. What are your thoughts?
Sidebar, I have been pretty silent on churches not live streaming for a couple of years because after and during the pandemic, it was so obvious that we had to find ways to support churches getting into live streaming.
Yeah.
I felt like, you know what? I have my belief here. It seems like 90% of churches are going to go another way. So I'm not just going to keep like pushing my belief.
Sure.
Guys, I'm back on the live streaming is not a thing. And I'm starting to see it pick up. People are starting to be like, why are we doing this? Is this really like the best way to serve our people and the people we're trying to reach? I'm starting to feel like the fire's coming back.
Ready to record another video? Why
I
your
might
church
be.
shouldn't be live streaming.
Why your church still because
Yes.
we already have why your church still shouldn't be live streaming. So an easy way to differentiate between these 2 categories of cameras that this person mentioned in their question, cinema category and then the broadcast category, is that cinema cameras are going to prioritize image quality while the broadcast category is going to prioritize live broadcasting features. So it's important here to not equate cinema cameras with resolution. The reason this person was hesitant to go with a cinema camera is like, we don't need 4K.
Right.
We don't need 8K. Resolution is not really a selling feature when it comes to overall image quality as much as people think. Like in terms of what actually contributes to a great looking image, we always think of like, the more resolution, the better, right? That's not true. Dynamic range is going to matter more. And then color accuracy and just like the colors themselves is going to matter a lot more. And then when it comes to what translates to a live stream, resolution is going to be one of the first things that gets degraded in compression. That level of sharpness, we got to get this stream to a camera card. We're going to keep every pixel. But now we're going to edit this, and we're going to have to export it. Well, we got to make this file size smaller. That resolution is starting to not be quite as sharp. We got to upload this to YouTube. YouTube's going to add that extra layer of compression. The dynamic range doesn't get affected.
Right.
The colors might get affected if you're using the right export settings. They also will not be affected. And so really, it comes down to, what do you care about? You want to upgrade your camera. Why? Presumably image quality? Because you mentioned it not being live broadcasting features. So to me then, cinema camera is the way to go. We have a full 24-page PDF. Go to prochurchtools.com under the resources section. You can find that and download it. For this church, the Sony FX3, the Sony FX30 are both outstanding options. We are recording with 2 FX30s right now.
Yeah.
The side angle that I'm pointing at now, and then the side angle Alex is pointing at now. So those are great options. They're around $1,800, outstanding for long-form video recording. The FX3 is kind of the big brother of the FX30. It's just full frame, so it's going to have better low-light performance and will provide more lensing options just because of its wider. But for most churches, that's just not going to be that important.
With really small camera bodies, like really comfortable form factors if you're shooting handheld or whatever, like really comfy cameras.
Yeah. But on the other hand, if you're just going to set up the camera on a tripod and just let it be, the Blackmagic cameras are still going to be awesome for this. Yeah. Even though they're called studio cameras and they have broadcasting features, the image quality on these is going to be great. The Blackmagic Pocket 6K, awesome. for a more hybrid option, the Blackmagic Studio 4K or Studio 6K cameras. They're going to give you some of those features for like broadcasting, which might be useful even if you're not going live. It can still be useful, like to see tally light, to know, we are recording that red light that's going on. It might have some of the the cabling options that you need to go into the existing interfaces that you're already using, but the image quality is still going to be great. Manufacturers know that we care about resolution. That's why they're putting it in the names of these cameras. They don't go the Blackmagic 13-stop studio camera.
Right.
They say the Blackmagic Studio 6K. Oh, 6K instead of 4K. Yeah. So I understand why we kind of fall for the resolution trap, but at the end of the day, it's probably not worth thinking about too much.
All right, back from church, back to fashion again. We were talking about fashion earlier, fashion websites. Now fashion on the lower half of your body. What are your go-to jeans brands?
So I have 3 here. These are the 3 pairs of jeans that I wear. The first is going to be the
Levi's.
Levi's are great.
Oh, are they?
So many great options. The problem with Levi's is like they've kind of changed. Everyone wants vintage Levi's. The new ones, they don't, hit quite the same.
Just like everything nowadays. They don't make them like they used to.
Right. So I go to new brands because they can't make it like they used to because
they're making it for the first time.
They're making it like they start to. So Our Legacy, which is a Swedish brand, they have a cut of jeans called the Third Cut, which is a straight cut. These are all kind of, actually, they're not all straight cut, but that one is. Love that. Acne Studios is probably my favorite clothing company. So they label their jeans and the cut of the jeans based on year. So the 1991s are relaxed fit. I have a bunch of those. The 2003s are a straight fit. Love those. And the 1996 are kind of a straight slim. And I have a few of those as well. And then this new pair of jeans that I got, this is going to be the cheapest pair on the list. Still not cheap relative to maybe a Levi's. But for something like jeans, what's so nice about jeans is like you only need a few pairs.
Sure.
If there's any item of clothing that you're going to invest cash into, like denim. If you find that pair of denim that like fits you well, that's an easy one that's worth saving up for. I believe this is an English brand and they are called About Blank, and they have a straight leg, beautiful blue wash that they recently dropped. Had to cop. Problem with jeans is like the waist just means nothing, like the number. So like Acne 1996, I wear like a 32. Acne's 2003, I wear a 29. Acne's 1991, I wear a 26.
No way.
They're just making stuff up at that point.
It's so silly too because like for men's clothing, the number represents like literally inches. So what are we doing?
Apparently not.
How is there a 6-inch disparity between jeans for you from the same company?
About Blank, they just have small, medium, large.
Okay.
So luckily I got them great right out of the box, but that was luck. And then Our Legacy, they have the European sizing. So it's like, are you a 41, a 42, a 43, a 44? I'm like, why are we starting at 41?
Yeah.
So I actually don't remember what size I am from Our Legacy off the cuff, but for reference, I am 5'8", 160 right now.
Good thing we have a good tailor.
That's right. Our guy. So you went to him for the first time.
I went to Ahmed. I needed some pants hemmed for our Oscars party.
Let's go.
And told him that I was referred to by Brady. He says, that's a good recommendation. So met Ahmed, nice guy. So we'll see what our relationship looks like. Me and Ahmed, see how many clothes he's going to be tailoring of mine. So far, we're just starting, easy.
I mean, you want to ease into it.
So we'll see. Maybe he'll be hemming my Our Legacy Third Cuts.
Oh, hello.
Well, the Acne 1991s, that's your birth year, right?
Yeah.
Do they have 93s?
No. 96, I mean,
it's a shame.
Baby Jylan, he's like what? He's like 19.
Yeah. 2003. Next question. I'm starting to grab clips from our live stream to post to our Reels format. Wanting to get a couple weeks ahead of schedule so I can have plenty to post. One thing that I have run into is the quality of the live stream to videos. It's not horrible, but I wish it was better. Are there any tips to making the video look better in post, or should I not let that stop me?
So if you can, you'd want to record a copy of the service direct to a card on a drive and then use that.
Instead of ripping the live stream.
Instead of the live stream, which is going to go from the camera, and then it's going to degrade the amount of data in the file to get it online, to encode it, to get it online. You're then going to store that, and you're going to download that encoded, compressed version to then re-export another time. So there's just a lot of compression that's happening at that point. So that being said, like, I always say this to churches when we get on calls, and they're like, we really want to start, doing some more stuff on social, but like our live stream video is not that great. And I was like, it's always useful to remember, you're looking at your live stream probably on a computer.
Yeah.
But the delivery medium is going to be on a phone. Mm-hmm. And the nice thing is that the phone is a lot smaller than the computer.
Yeah.
And so you're actually going to it's a lot more generous in that way. Whatever you've got in terms of resolution, it's going to look a lot crispier than it would be once it's compressed. And so in a lot of ways, that compression almost gets undone when you shrink it down. So that's positive. So long as the audio is crisp as well, you can get away with video that's not super great. The most important thing is if you're using your live stream file, then you're downloading that to then cut it up, is are there overlays? Are there lower thirds on that? You always want to be working with a clean feed, because imagine if you're working on a horizontal 16:9 canvas and you're cropping to a vertical 9:16 and there's a lower third on the screen, there's no way to reconcile that lower third is going to get chopped in half. Unless you zoom in. Well, now you're degrading the quality even more because you're zooming in on the actual file. This is what churches end up doing. And this is the most important thing in respect to this question. They'll look at their sermon and they're like, you know what? The quality here could be better. And it probably could be. And they're like, I don't know if I'm happy with it. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to dress this up. So I'm going to take it, I'm going to shrink it down, and I'm going to put it on a colored frame with a texture and a fun background. Or I'm going to use a lot of graphics. I'm going to add a cool filter. I'm going to put some backing audio track behind it. So, okay, I've taken this and I've dressed it up. That's the worst thing that you can possibly do when it comes to performance on social media. Why? Think about every video of mine that you watch. Not this one, but on YouTube, on Instagram. You can tell that I have prepared that content. It's scripted. I'm looking at the camera. I'm talking directly to you. Churches have this amazing advantage because the POV of our services, when people see them online, is, this was a live event. This wasn't for me. I am watching something that is not contrived, that is not prepared. This is a real thing. That's a tremendously potent perspective because it feels unadulterated. It's this is raw and real, and I get to be a fly on the wall for this. If you start taking that, shrinking it down, cropping it, putting it on this beautiful frame, I found this awesome graphic. It looks stunning. It looks great. It looks really cool. Here's the problem. It has now undone the one advantage you had. You didn't have the most beautiful stream. Your resolution wasn't that crisp. The lighting in your stage sucks. That's all fine because you have this amazing POV that makes people want to look at things.
Right.
Don't then undo that because you've actually compromised the one thing you had going for you.
Oh, there you go. We're sitting by the pool. Well, the pool's over here, but we're close enough. You have any fashion advice for men's swimwear?
So I've had a lot of trouble with trunks. And the reason is because, candidly, I have a wagon. Everyone stores fat in different spots. And the rear end is where I happen to store a lot of my fat.
Okay.
And so I have to get down pretty lean before that part of me also starts to get lean. And that means what I often found is I would put on trunks and my bigger thighs and my bigger butt are making them real tight. And you don't want that with trunks.
No.
So the one brand that I've had great success with is a brand called Chubbies.
No way.
Yeah, which, is a little hurtful.
Yeah.
But there's something in the elastine of the trunks that just always works. And you know what? If you look at the photos of the big boys on there, they are all big boys.
Yeah.
It's hey, are you a Canadian boy that spent too much time on hockey skates and has a big butt and legs? Or played a lot of basketball, which means you're not a Canadian boy? Great, this is for you.
Yeah.
Did you inherit your dad's body and he was a wrestler? Good for you. Have fun. So that's been really helpful.
Yeah.
You want them to be comfortable and they need to have some give. Then you got to consider length. So we're both around 5'8", 5'9". So we're not going to want to have those board shorts that are too long because they're going to make us look a lot shorter.
Right.
So my regular shorts, I find 5 inches are great. For trunks, I actually prefer 4 inches because when you don't have a top on at all, 5 inches actually looks longer on the short than when you do have a top that maybe goes down a little bit past the waistband of your shorts. Like what I'm wearing right now, these shorts are closer to like 5 inches. And when you sit down, they ride up a bit. That's okay. But when I stand up, this crochet top comes below it. If you're listening, pardon me, some of this might not be helpful, but the inch requirement is good. So if you are roughly our height, or if you're a little bit taller, a little bit shorter, you can adjust what I would say is the recommended length of trunk accordingly. And then style, I've tried different colors. You know, maybe I need to do a color analysis the way that TikTok keeps telling me to. But I just love a pair of black trunks. Yeah. I have been experimenting with more color. Right now I'm wearing this white and orange crochet shirt.
Love it.
My pants, my shorts are similar color to Alex, which is just some tan. I've got some beige Berkey Bostons on. I'm experimenting with more color, or at least more tones. But you just can't go wrong with a black suit.
No. Somehow Ryland's pulling off what I think is a 3-inch inseam today. I've never seen anything like that before.
Yeah, I can see him from here, and he's just sunbathing, like mostly in the nude. And I mean, praise God for him.
Honestly. Okay, guys, I've been loving the Pro Church Tools rebrand. Thanks for noticing. And I had a question. How do you guys go about email formatting? Do you use something like MailChimp to design and format your emails? The look has been so clean and clear, and I would love to implement something like that for our church as we try to use emails in a formational way for our congregants.
So right now we're sending 2 emails a week. We send a plain text, kind of more personal style email on Tuesdays, and we use ConvertKit for this and have for many years. And then on Thursdays, we're now sending our new newsletter. It's called the 167. Why is it called that? Because the point of the newsletter is to help your church navigate the 167 hours beyond Sunday service every single week. We tried this with ConvertKit, and then we switched to a different platform called Beehive. Now, I love Beehive, but their spelling is horrendous. It's Beehiiv.
Yeah.
So Beehive not only lets us create the formatted newsletters, but importantly also lets us host them online.
It's really cool.
So if you go to 167.prochurchtools.com, you can find the online archive of all of our newsletters.
And that's important because those newsletters, like, you're putting like a lot of work into, and functionally are like it's like a compilation style blog post. Like it's a rather large piece of content. And so for all of that work, I think it's actually important that it's hosted online for people to see and interact with there as well.
What's also nice is if you go to that website, you can see like there's a big subscribe area at the top, but you can also then just click and see the newsletters so you know what you're getting into. And I first stumbled upon this when there were other newsletters that I was like, oh, I'm intrigued about joining this. I'm like, but I don't really know what I'm getting myself into. Like, I'm just going to give you access to my inbox.
Right, so you see like history of what they have been sending.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's an actual subscribe landing page. I don't know the URL off the top, but where you can go and it's like, hey, it's just a opt-in page for the newsletter. And then at the bottom it's like, not ready yet? Read past issues. Cool. And you can click on that and then you can explore. And that's a great way of like, hey, you're not ready for this layer in our relationship, first date dilemma.
Yep.
Check this out. Learn a bit more about me before you commit to this.
And those emails do look awesome.
Now, that being said, sometimes the formatting is going to be wonky just because every email client is different. Like, for instance, I use Airmail.
Okay.
And on desktop, I have the background of the newsletter set to this like cream color. And on my desktop, the mail shows that. But then like on mobile, it's just white.
Huh.
It's the same email client.
Right.
So I wrote Beehive and they're like, yeah, like email clients just do things. And,
That's really comforting to me because folks will write into Nucleus and say like, because we have Nucleus people and messages. You can send emails through Nucleus to your church members. People say like, hey, our emails are looking this way. And that's usually our response because it's true. Like, some email hosts will display content differently and receive content differently, and sorry, that's out of our hands.
And this is why we have been saying just use plain text email, and why we've only ever sent plain text email forever. And we haven't abandoned that. We're still doing it. We've added another email because we're doing so much content that we really want to be able to make sure that it's being seen, it's being shared, it's being published in ways that are accessible to people, and newsletters in kind of like the online zeitgeist are having a big moment right now, almost as a way to push back against the algorithmic volatility of social platforms. And why a lot of people are like, hey, we're going to publish on social and then we want to move people to the newsletter, which is not new. That's literally what we've been doing since 2011 when this company started.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, there's like this new thrust of kind of expressions of it, and Beehive is a big part of that. So a few of the features we really like about Beehive, number one is the ability to show something in an email, but to hide it on the website. So for example, when I'm preparing the email, I can create a section at the end of the newsletter where I invite folks to subscribe if they're new, or forward the newsletter to a friend in ministry who they might think would find it useful.
Yep.
I hide those elements on the web version.
Makes sense.
So I publish it once, it gets sent via email, those sections show up in the email, but if you go and read that same newsletter online, it's not going to show that because it wouldn't be relevant.
Right.
That's nice.
Cool.
Second thing I like is the hosted site. Again, you can see ours at 167.prochurchtools.com. So it's hosted on a subdomain. I was a bit worried about the formatting and design options at the beginning, but I'm really happy with how it turned out. There was a lot. Like, I wouldn't say it was like an easy onboarding process with Beehive. Like, it took me several days of like working at it to set it up, but I am happy with how it turned out. And then the pricing, it is $84 a month for up to 100,000 subscribers. That's not like cheap for a lot of churches. Let's say, like, it's not like, oh, why are you highlighting pricing? Like, that's not inaccessible, but you wouldn't consider that like that's a huge bargain. Email marketing platforms are famous for just outrageous pricing, because what they do is they charge based on subscriber, based on number of admins, based on number of emails that you send, based on number of sequences. And this is why with Nucleus Messages that you mentioned, we have always just had like unlimited everything on our plan, no limit. So as many follow-up sequences as you want, as many broadcasts as you want, as many subscribers as you want, as many admins as you want, because there's a huge value for that for churches. I was on MailChimp's site the other day, and I was looking at like their plan where it had up to 100,000 contacts. So it was like still not unlimited, but like for virtually everyone. Like for reference, we have about 50,000 contacts that we pretty consistently prune.
Yeah.
Like if you're not clicking and following, we don't want you to be on the list anymore, because for deliverability that matters. If we didn't do that, we'd be well beyond 100,000 at this point. It was $500 a month, and it still was like you get 3 admins and you get this. It was like, we're still doing this in 2024. It's crazy. And then number 4, I like that you can style images directly within the editor. We do this on Nucleus Web. It's one of my favorite features, where you can take a photo on Nucleus Web and treat it with different blend modes, treat it with different fades and colored overlays. So instead of bringing it into Canva, instead of bringing it into Photoshop, you could do it directly in there. Beehive has some similar options. So you can add an outline. They have a dashed outline option that I really like and use a lot. You can take a photo that might have like square edges and round off the edges. Nice and sophisticated. And this might also be a good time to announce the Pro Church Tools Scholarship, which is brand new. And I think I announced it last week on Instagram.
Yep.
But basically, we are going to begin awarding a $500 scholarship to a new church every single month. All churches are eligible. And you don't need to be a subscriber or a customer of one of our products. You don't need to, like, we're not going to tell you how to spend the money, the $500. Oh, yeah. It's a scholarship for Nucleus. It's like, no. Yeah, maybe you want to put some money towards one of those cameras that we mentioned. Like, go for it. Maybe you want to buy our Legacy Third Cut and just, like, not tell the church. Don't launder money. And then you also, any church in the world, you don't need to be Canadian or North American. So every Thursday at 9 a.m., the 167 newsletter goes out. Here is how to become eligible for the scholarship. Starting in March, I'm going to begin including a new section in one newsletter each month with a special keyword. So for instance, the keyword might be mustache. It's not going to be mustache, but as an example.
But it will be man bun.
This keyword will change every month, and it's only going to be sent in one issue every month.
Okay.
The keyword is your ticket to entry for the scholarship. So once you see that keyword, oh, it's mustache, DM me on Instagram with just the keyword. So you would just DM me mustache. That means you've secured your entry for that month's scholarship, and we're going to redo it every single month. So a new church gets a new $500 scholarship every single month. You just need to be subscribed to the newsletter, 167.prochurchtools.com, to be eligible.
Amazing. I'm eager to hear how churches allocate the $500 from their scholarship, because there's all sorts of things worth investing in.
Absolutely. That's what makes it fun. It's a scholarship, depending on where your church is, what your needs might be at that moment. Oh, this is perfect time. We've done this before, like not consistently. We've done it like, oh, we have $1,000 to give to a church. Oh, this is perfect for this.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. Swimming pool, tidal pool, or open beach?
Do you have strong thoughts on this?
I don't have strong thoughts on this. I just like water. Being around water with kids, it like presents its own unique set of circumstances and anxieties. And so I guess at this stage of life, we might be answering this question in a certain way. I grew up around water. I was a swim instructor and a speed swimming coach. My mom's a swim instructor. My grandmother's a swim instructor. So I just love it. Rebecca, without question, would answer open beach because the ocean and the beach is her favorite place on earth. We were there this morning, and I don't see her light up like that about anything else. Like when she gets to the beach and when she walks to the ocean and gets her feet in the water, that is like it for her. So I'm agnostic here. I don't really mind, but Rebecca would feel strongly about the beach.
Tidal pool is a no.
Sounds dangerous.
Yeah, you know, like the wave pools.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I'd probably lean beach, but I do love the ocean.
Yeah.
But a nice, I just said the same thing twice. This is a long podcast. I'd probably lean pools.
Okay.
But I still love the beach and the ocean.
Yeah, because like the beach was great this morning,
Yeah.
but sand is not always great.
It's quite messy.
And it's a lot more windy at the beach than it was
Indeed.
here. We're just, a few hundred yards down
It's
the road.
not as clean.
Yes. You don't have all the amenities of
Nope.
a close washroom, virgin mojitos, this comfy couch.
Right?
Maybe I'm a pool guy.
Maybe
Sounds
you
like
are.
it. 15th and final question for this episode of the Pro Church Tool Show, this inaugural
Inaugural.
episode
It really
of the
is.
Pro Church Pool Show. What are your best tips? What are your best tips for starting a church podcast? Just let you know, we already have good structure and good equipment.
Okay, the reason I wanted to include this is because they say we already have the equipment.
All right.
Usually the question comes in like, what gear do we need?
Sure.
But that's taken care
Yeah.
of. So
And we've answered that question before.
we have.
Yeah.
Most important thing is consistency. Do not miss a week. When people ask me, hey, would you come on my podcast? The first question I ask back is, have you published 10 episodes already? And half the time they say no. And I say, once you've done that, write me back. I'm glad to come on. But most podcasts just never get past that first. I don't know if people are expecting we're going to launch a podcast and suddenly I'm going to have like this international audience.
Right.
I'm not sure if the expectations are not good.
Right.
But we love to just encourage you to stay consistent because that is the most important thing.
Yeah.
The second is predictable format. So for us, once a month, we do a question and answer show. Evidently, once a year, we do it internationally.
Yeah.
And then once a month, we do a interview show. And then the other couple episodes are like specific subject matter and content. And they're predictable format with the same intro, roughly the same length, the same two hosts, and we're covering similar subject matter. And then for church specifically, you got to ask the question, like people in your church are already getting a long form talk in the form of a sermon each week. So how is this different? And what's the value to them? People and companies, organizations, folks start podcasts because like I'm doing social media content. That's all bite-sized. I'm doing YouTube videos. Those are all really prepared. A long form, informal conversation style podcast. There's nothing like that in the content universe of my world. Churches are already doing that every single week, basically. So how are you going to do it differently? Maybe it's question and answer. I would definitely recommend it's not monologue based with your pastor. Like create a different format where there is a host. Maybe they're the one asking the questions. Or if you want to rely on their expertise, that's great. But have another host so that it's back and forth. The way Alex and I are back and forth, where for 90% of the time I talk and he goes, yes, I like it. And then finally, consider fun segments with some kind of novelty. Those are easy ways to frame episodes, so it's going to help with consistency. But then they become like running segments that if you know, sort of thing. Like I mentioned Bro Church Tools, and a bunch of people got it, and then a bunch of people were like, "Bro, why isn't your company Pro Church Tools?" And now they're in on the joke. And now we're taking the joke one step further with Bro Church Pools, which is just so nonsensical that maybe we've taken it too far. But back to the Ringer, they excel at this. Like, Bill Simmons has his $1 million picks, which, in sports, gambling is such huge money right now in terms of sponsorships. And he's done this, it predates that. But instead of just saying, here are my picks, he's like, here are my $1 million picks. So basically he takes this fictional $1 million and he bets them on football during football season, and then he tracks it each week. It's like, so far this
then you're
year,
bought in.
I don't sports gamble. I don't like it. I've tried it. I didn't enjoy it, and I don't definitely bet millions of dollars on it. But it's fascinating to listen to, just because like it becomes this story that's and it's this segment with a fun name, and truthfully, gambling folks have done this forever. Like Simpsons gags from way back in the day. It's like my lock of the week, and then you pick up this giant lock, and like it's a fun segment. Bill Simmons also does Parent Corner. So at the end of an episode, he'll do Parent Corner with this other guy, and they just tell a story about their kids. So creating segments, we're going to start implementing this more because I think it's one thing that we can grow in, and I think folks would find value in, and we're going to actually begin doing that more. So that's another. Any tips from you?
Yeah, I think like I understand the desire from a church worker's perspective to want to use a podcast medium to share content, because we think we are, and we believe we're sharing the greatest story ever told. So it's like, why not talk about this more? And so I get that. I empathize with that. But to one of your earlier points about the fact that our church communities are already consuming a long form piece of content from our organization every week. So I think it's essential, it's prudent for any church wanting to start a podcast to ask the question, like, what is the purpose of this show? And there are many. Like, it could be, the purpose of this is for the spiritual formation of our congregation. Well, then that's going to inform what your show looks like. The purpose of this show is for community engagement in our church and around. That show will take on a different complexion. The purpose of this show is to share the story of Jesus with the broadest audience possible. Okay, that show's going to take on a different complexion. So I think you're really going to have to be introspective enough to ask the question, like, what are we trying to do specifically with this show? I love the idea of trying to, we talk a lot here at Pro Church Tools about season the 167, the 167 hours beyond your Sunday service. And so using the podcast medium to help your congregation put one foot in front of the other on Tuesday afternoon. And so for me, I love the idea of using a podcast for spiritual formation. That could look like so many different things. The first thing that comes to mind is centering voices on the show that aren't just the predominant voices that you hear from stage on Sunday. Yep. Because that's likely not what your church wants or needs, is just to hear another long form piece of content from the same voice throughout the middle of the week. So center more voices in your community, whether it's other staff members or volunteers or just lay people in your church. Find a way within the structure of your show to invite them on the show to feel a part of it. And then when other lay people from your church are listening to it, they will feel seen and heard and known by hearing other lay people on the show. So I really like the idea, this is just like very philosophical, of a diversity of voices in whatever kind of format you choose to do on the show. But I think the opportunity is there. I mean, you and I are both like avid podcast listeners, and we listen to each one of those shows because they provide real and unique value that speaks to a certain area of our lives. For me, it's usually at the intersection of faith and culture or sports.
Really at the intersection of faith and meat.
Yes. But we all like, and maybe it's a symptom of something else. Like maybe we should all just be consuming less content. But I think the desire is there for your community, your church, to engage with your church's content beyond the Sunday service. You just have to ask yourself the question first, like, what do we want the goal? What do we want to achieve with the show? And I think that'll help give you the context for the structure of whatever you're going to do in order to make it successful for your community.
You know, we wanted to achieve a podcast episode filmed on the corporate retreat. We're glad that you came along for the ride. We'll be back in the studio next week. And thanks as always for your time, attention, and trust. We'll talk to you then.